You need to vacate this structure within 72 hours, Mr. Martinez. Your house, everything you've built here, sits on Highland Meadows HOA property now. If you refuse, we'll be forced to pursue legal action for unlawful occupancy. I was standing on the deck I'd spent 3 summers building with my own hands, every board cut, sanded, and sealed by me staring at a woman in cream-colored Lululemon leggings, a tailored blazer that probably cost more than my truck payment, and pearl earrings that caught the Colorado sun like tiny surveillance cameras. She held a clipboard thick enough to brain a coyote. Her platinum blonde hair pulled so tight it looked like a threat, and she was smiling at me like I was a child who'd just been caught stealing cookies. Her name was Amanda Crawford, 41 years old, president of the Highland Meadows Homeowners Association. And according to the papers she'd just handed me, she now controlled the land I'd been building on for the past 5 years. Land I'd bought outright, paid taxes on, and literally bled into. "This is my property," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice level even though my pulse was hammering in my ears. "I have the deed. I have the title. I have 5 years of construction permits. You can't just show up and claim, actually," Amanda interrupted, her voice dripping with that particular brand of condescension that people use when they think they've already won. "As of the rezoning approval in March 2024, your parcel falls within the expanded fire mitigation buffer zone of Highland Meadows. That makes it subject to HOA oversight and architectural compliance. Since you never submitted plans to our design committee and this structure," she gestured at my house like it was a pile of trash, "violates multiple community standards, we're within our rights to demand removal or voluntary surrender of occupancy." I looked past her at the 3 men in reflective safety vests, standing by their pristine SUVs, taking photos of my house with expensive cameras. One of them was measuring something with a laser rangefinder. Another was pointing a drone at my roof. This wasn't a courtesy visit. This was an invasion. "Get the hell off my property," I said quietly. Amanda tilted her head, still smiling. "We're still willing to work with you, Marcus. There's a pathway to compliance if you're cooperative, but the clock is ticking." She turned and walked back to her black Range Rover like she owned every inch of ground between us, her heels somehow not sinking into the dirt I'd leveled with my bare hands 5 years ago. I stood there holding that envelope, watching them drive away, and felt something cold and furious settle in my chest. They thought they could steal my home. They thought I'd just give up. They had no idea what was coming. 5 years ago, if you'd told me I'd be fighting a homeowners association in court over land theft, I would have laughed and offered you a beer while we watched the sunset over the Rockies. Back then, my biggest worry was whether I could finish framing the main structure before winter hit, and whether my kids would think I was crazy for dragging them up a mountain every weekend to build a house from scratch. I'm Marcus Martinez, 44 years old, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. Spent the last 20 years running a custom furniture business, high-end cabinets, hardwood restoration, the kind of meticulous work where you measure 3 times and cut once because mistakes cost thousands of dollars and your reputation. I'd always dreamed of building something bigger. Not for clients, for me, for my family. A place where my kids could grow up with dirt under their nails and stars overhead instead of city lights and traffic noise. Somewhere real. Somewhere that couldn't be taken away by landlords or market crashes or any of the other forces that make modern life feel so temporary. In 2019, I found it. 18 acres of raw mountain land in Jefferson County, Colorado, about 30 miles west of Golden. Steep terrain covered in ponderosa pine and scrub oak, with granite outcroppings and a view that made your chest physically ache. No utilities, no roads. No neighbors within 2 miles, just altitude, silence, and a view that stretched all the way to the Continental Divide. The land cost me everything. I'd saved $85,000, which was a steal even then. But it came with challenges that would have sent most people running. No driveway, no water source except what we could collect or haul. No power lines within 3 miles. The only access was a barely maintained fire trail that turned into a muddy nightmare every time it rained and was completely impassable for 3 months every winter. I didn't care. I'd been building things my whole life. This would just be the biggest, hardest, most meaningful project I'd ever tackled. My wife, Elena, thought I was insane. You want to spend every weekend for the next 5 years building a house in the mountains with no experience in construction? She'd asked when I first showed her the property. I have plenty of experience, I'd countered, just not with houses. Cabinets and houses are not the same thing, Marcus. Wood is wood. Joints are joints. It's just bigger. She'd looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. The kids are going to think you've lost your mind. But the kids, Sophia, 12, and Diego, 9, thought it was the greatest adventure anyone had ever proposed. Diego immediately started planning a treehouse. Sophia started a YouTube channel called Dad's Crazy Mountain House Project to document everything. My mother-in-law said I was having a midlife crisis and should buy a Corvette like a normal person, but I knew what I was doing. Or at least, I thought I did. The first summer, 2019, I cleared brush and leveled the building site with a rented excavator I barely knew how to operate. I watched YouTube videos at night and learned as I went, making mistakes and fixing them, slowly figuring out how to move earth without killing myself or destroying the property. I hauled gravel by hand, one wheelbarrow load at a time, building up the foundation pad. Mixed concrete in a rusted portable mixer that sounded like it was actively dying but somehow kept running. Set rebar with Diego while Sophia filmed everything and provided running commentary for her growing YouTube audience. We slept in tents pitched near the building site, cooked on a propane camp stove, got eaten alive by mosquitoes, watched elk wander through our campsite at dawn like we were the intruders, not them. But every foundation block I poured, every beam I raised, every nail I drove, that was ours. We were earning it with our own hands and our own sweat. By the end of that first summer, I had a foundation, just a concrete pad with anchor bolts waiting for framing, but it was there, solid, real, proof that this crazy dream was actually possible. Year 2, I started framing. I'd taken a weekend course on timber framing and studied dozens of books and videos. I bought rough-cut lumber from a sawmill near Fort Collins' beautiful ponderosa pine and Douglas fir, still wet from cutting, that I'd have to let dry on site. Elena and I spent entire weekends cutting, measuring, fitting pieces together like a massive wooden puzzle. The kids helped where they could, handing tools, carrying materials, holding boards steady while I drove screws. Progress was agonizingly slow. Weather stalled us. Injuries delayed us. I broke 2 fingers when a beam shifted wrong and caught my hand against a post. Spent 3 weeks working one-handed, learning to do everything left-handed while my right hand healed. There were weekends we couldn't make the drive because of snow blocking the fire trail. Months where money was so tight I had to choose between buying materials and paying the mortgage on our house in Denver. But we kept coming back. Because this wasn't just construction. This was proof that ordinary people could still build something extraordinary with their own hands and determination. By year 3, the frame stood like a skeleton, rising out of the rocks, posts and beams, creating the outline of what would become our home. I built the walls from reclaimed barn wood I'd salvaged from a demolished homestead near Fort Collins, spending hours cutting and planing each board to fit. Year 4 brought walls, a roof, and windows. We installed solar panels, salvaged from a foreclosed property, 8 panels that had cost someone $15,000 new and that I bought for $800 at auction. Set up a rainwater collection system feeding into 3 500-gallon tanks. Built a composting toilet that Diego immediately named the Throne of Solitude, and that became a running joke in Sophia's YouTube videos. Last year, 2024, we finally got the interior finished. Hardwood floors milled from beetle kill pine that I'd bought from a Forest Service salvage sale. Kitchen cabinets I'd built in my shop in Denver and hauled up the mountain one at a time, carefully wrapped and strapped to my truck. A stone fireplace that Elena and I mortared together over 3 brutal weekends in July, carrying river rock up from a creek bed a half-mile away. It was beautiful, rustic and rough in places, but solid and real. The kind of house that felt earned rather than bought. Every detail had intention, every surface had a story. We were planning to move in permanently this fall, rent out the Denver house to help cover the mortgage, let the kids finish school in the Mountain District, start the life we'd been building toward for 5 years. And then Amanda Crawford showed up with her clipboard and her threats and her claim that everything I'd built was now somehow hers to control. It started with the letter. I found it wedged in my mailbox at the Denver house 2 weeks before Amanda's visit, a thick cream-colored envelope with Highland Meadows HOA embossed in gold lettering that looked like it had been designed to intimidate. Inside was a formal notice, professionally printed on heavy cardstock, informing me that my property had been incorporated into the Highland Meadows community boundary as part of a fire mitigation and development expansion initiative approved by Jefferson County in March 2024. The letter claimed my structure, they didn't even call it a house, was now subject to Highland Meadows architectural review standards and that I needed to submit detailed plans, pay a $5,000 compliance assessment fee, and agree to conditional occupancy restrictions. The deadline was 30 days from the date of the letter. If I didn't comply, I'd face enforcement actions including but not limited to occupancy restrictions, fines, and potential legal proceedings. I read it 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Highland Meadows was a gated luxury community about 2 miles east of my property. Massive custom homes with manicured lawns, private hiking trails, a clubhouse with a gym and spa and restaurant, the kind of place where HOA dues cost $800 a month, and where residents drove Range Rovers and Teslas and complained if their neighbors' trash cans were visible from the street. I'd driven past it a few times over the years. Never gave it much thought because it was nowhere near my land and had nothing to do with me, but apparently that had changed. I called the number on the letterhead. A cheerful voice answered on the second ring. Highland Meadows Community Management, this is Brittany speaking. How can I help you today? I got a letter saying my property is now part of your HOA, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. That doesn't make sense. I own my land outright. I'm not in any HOA. I never agreed to join anything. Oh! Brittany's voice shifted to that practiced sympathy people use when they're reading from a script. You must be one of the properties affected by the boundary expansion. Let me transfer you to our compliance director. She can explain everything. The line clicked, held for 30 seconds of bad hold music, then a new voice, smooth, confident, slightly condescending. This is Amanda Crawford. How can I help you? I explained the situation, told her I'd bought the land 5 years ago, had been building on it legally with proper permits, and had never heard anything about HOA expansion until this letter arrived. She listened without interrupting, which somehow made it worse, like she was letting me exhaust myself before explaining why everything I just said was irrelevant. Mr. Martinez, she said when I finished, I understand your confusion. The expansion was approved through proper channels with the County Planning Commission. Your property now falls within our extended fire safety perimeter, which means it's subject to community oversight for safety and aesthetic consistency. I never agreed to join an HOA. You don't have to agree to join. The zoning change was administrative. It's already in effect. That's not legal. You can't just claim someone's property without their consent. Actually, it is legal. HOA boundary expansions for safety purposes are permitted under Colorado law when approved by the appropriate county authorities. I'd be happy to send you the documentation. But in the meantime, you'll need to submit your architectural plans and pay the assessment fee by the deadline. Otherwise, we'll be forced to pursue non-compliance proceedings. There was something in her tone, not quite threatening, but definitely not friendly. Like she was daring me to argue further. What happens if I don't comply? I asked. Then we follow our standard enforcement procedures. Fines, liens against the property, potential legal action to bring the structure into compliance or restrict occupancy. We don't want to go down that road, Mr. Martinez. It's much easier if you just work with us. I hung up without responding and immediately called my buddy Carlos, who worked in the Jefferson County Planning Office and had helped me navigate the permit process when I first bought the land. Pull up parcel J447092. I told him, "That's my land. Check the current zoning designation." I heard typing, then silence, then mierda. What? Your parcel is showing a new overlay. Fire Mitigation Buffer Zone, designated March 2024. Shows it's now under Highland Meadows Community Jurisdiction for Development Compliance. How the hell did that happen? That's my property. They can't just change the zoning without notifying me. I don't know, Marcus. This kind of change usually requires public notice and a hearing. Let me dig into the Planning Commission records and see what I can find. He called me back 2 hours later. His voice was tight, angry. I found the filing. Highland Meadows submitted a proposal to the Planning Commission in February 2024 to expand their fire safety perimeter to include adjacent undeveloped parcels. They claimed it was necessary for wildfire mitigation after the Marshall Fire. The Commission approved it in March without objection. Without objection, because nobody knew about it. Where was the public notice? That's the thing for fire safety overlays. They don't need individual property owner notification. They just have to publish a notice in the legal section of the county newspaper and post it online. Most people never see those notices, so they can just steal someone's property rights by publishing a legal notice nobody reads. They're not technically stealing your property. You still own it. But yes, they can impose HOA jurisdiction through the overlay designation. The question is whether they followed proper procedure and whether the expansion was actually necessary for fire safety, or if they're abusing the process for other reasons. That question kept me awake all night. Because looking at that letter again, the heavy cardstock, the formal language, the tight deadline, the assessment fee, this didn't feel like fire safety. This felt like a shakedown, and I had a sinking feeling it was about to get much worse. Amanda showed up at the property on a Saturday morning in late May, driving that black Range Rover with darkly tinted windows, followed by 3 men in matching Highland Meadows safety vests, riding in spotless SUVs like some kind of suburban military convoy. I was on the deck staining the railing posts when I heard their vehicles coming up the fire trail, not the sound you expect on a remote mountain property where the only traffic is usually me. I frowned and walked to the edge of the deck to look down the trail. That's when I saw the chain. I kept the entrance gate locked with a heavy chain and padlock, not to keep out hikers or wildlife, but to prevent people from driving up and damaging the trail or leaving trash. The only people with keys were me, Elena, and the county fire department. The chain was lying on the ground, cut clean through with bolt cutters. My jaw tightened. Whoever these people were, they'd just committed criminal trespass. The vehicles parked right in front of the house, not off to the side, not at a respectful distance, but front and center like they owned the place. The Range Rover's driver's door opened, and Amanda Crawford stepped out. I recognized her immediately from LinkedIn. I'd looked her up after that phone call. Professional headshot, corporate smile. Bio listing her credentials: community management professional, certified HOA director, committed to excellence in residential governance. In person, she looked exactly like her photo, except more intimidating. Cream-colored Lululemon yoga pants that probably cost $200. Tailored blazer in charcoal gray. Pearl stud earrings. Hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Expensive sunglasses. And that clipboard, leather-bound, thick with papers, held like a weapon. She walked toward me without hesitation, heels clicking on the stone path I'd laid 2 summers ago. "Mr. Martinez," she said, not offering her hand. "I'm Amanda Crawford, president of Highland Meadows HOA. We need to talk about your non-compliance issue." I set down the stain brush carefully. "You cut my chain. We have access rights under the fire safety designation. Your property is part of our community perimeter now, which means we have the right to inspect for compliance and safety violations. This is private property. You just committed criminal trespass." She smiled that tight, professional smile people use when they're about to screw you over and want you to thank them for it. Actually, as of the March rezoning, we have oversight authority for properties within the buffer zone. Your structure here, she gestured at my house like it was a shed someone had thrown together over a weekend, was built without HOA approval. That makes it non-compliant with community standards. I have building permits from Jefferson County. County permits aren't enough. You need HOA Architectural Committee approval for any structure within our jurisdiction. Since you didn't get that approval, this building is considered unauthorized. While we talked, her 3 cronies had fanned out across the property. One was taking photos with a professional camera, wide shots of the house, close-ups of details, photos of the solar panels and water collection system. Another was measuring the deck with a laser rangefinder, recording numbers in a tablet. The third had launched a drone that was now hovering over my roof, its camera pointed down at the structure. "Stop," I said loudly enough for all of them to hear. "You don't have permission to photograph my property or fly drones over it. Leave now, or I'm calling the sheriff." Amanda's expression didn't change. "We're conducting a compliance assessment. It's our right under community oversight regulations. If you interfere, you'll be in violation of HOA bylaws and subject to additional penalties. I'm not in your HOA. I never joined. I never agreed to any bylaws. The zoning change made you part of Highland Meadows, whether you agreed or not. That's how overlay districts work, Mr. Martinez." I pulled out my phone and took a photo of her, then her Range Rover with the license plate visible, then each of her team members, then the cut chain lying on the ground. "You're trespassing," I said clearly. "You destroyed my property to gain access. Everything you're doing right now is illegal. Get off my land." Amanda tilted her head slightly, studying me like I was an interesting insect. "Mr. Martinez, I understand you're frustrated, but fighting this won't help you. We're offering a pathway to compliance, a chance to bring your structure up to community standards and avoid legal problems. If you cooperate, we can work together. And if I don't cooperate, then we follow our enforcement procedures. Fines, liens, legal action. Eventually, if you continue to refuse compliance, we can seek an injunction preventing occupancy until the violations are corrected. We've done it before with other non-compliant properties. The courts generally side with HOAs on safety issues." She handed me another envelope, thick, cream-colored, formal. "This is a detailed list of violations we've identified. You have 72 hours to either submit a compliance plan or vacate the structure. After that, we file with the court." I didn't open the envelope, just held it, staring at her. "You can't just show up and claim my house is yours," I said quietly. "We're not claiming your house. We're claiming jurisdiction over development within our community boundaries. There's a difference." She smiled again. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Martinez." "I hope you make the right decision." She walked back to her Range Rover. Her team packed up their equipment and followed. Within 2 minutes, they were gone, driving back down the fire trail like they'd just completed a successful mission. I stood there holding that envelope, staring at the cut chain, feeling something cold and heavy settle in my chest. This wasn't about fire safety. This wasn't about architectural standards. This was something else entirely, and I was going to find out exactly what. The envelope contained 15 pages of alleged violations, each one more absurd than the last. Violation has shown: unauthorized exterior finish. Structure exhibits non-approved wood siding inconsistent with Highland Meadows aesthetic standards. Approved materials: stucco, brick, or James Hardie fiber cement in approved color palette. The reclaimed barnwood I'd spent months selecting, cutting, and installing the beautiful weathered pine that gave the house its character was a violation. Violation #2 non-compliant roof material. Metal roofing not approved under HOA architectural guidelines. Required: dimensional asphalt shingles in approved neutral tones. The standing seam metal roof I'd installed specifically for fire resistance and snow shedding was non-compliant. Violation #3 unapproved solar installation. Solar panels visible from community areas must be integrated, concealed per architectural standards. The solar panels that powered my entire house, my only source of electricity, 30 miles from the nearest power line, needed to be concealed. Violation hash 4, non-standard rainwater collection system. Visible water storage tanks require architectural screening and committee approval. Violation hash 5, unauthorized deck construction. Deck extends beyond approved building envelope and lacks proper railing specifications. Violation hash 6, non-compliant chimney design. Violation hash 7, unapproved window placement and style. The list went on and on. Every single design choice I'd made, every detail I'd spent hours researching and implementing was somehow a violation. At the bottom was the assessment. Estimated compliance cost $175,000 to $200,000. To bring my 5-year labor of love into compliance, I'd essentially have to tear down and rebuild everything to their specifications. Specifications designed for luxury suburban homes in a gated community, not for an off-grid mountain house built by hand on raw land. Elena read through the list that night, her expression shifting from disbelief to anger. "This is insane," she said. "They're telling you to tear down everything we built and rebuild it as some generic HOA McMansion? That's exactly what they're telling me. Can they do this? I don't know, but I'm going to find out." I spent that night researching Colorado HOA law, reading court cases, trying to understand how any of this could be legal. What I found wasn't encouraging. HOAs in Colorado have broad powers, especially when they claim to be acting for safety or community welfare. Courts generally defer to HOA architectural committees on questions of aesthetic standards. And boundary expansions for fire safety were explicitly permitted under state law after the devastating Marshall Fire in 2021. But something still didn't add up. The violations weren't about fire safety, they were about aesthetics, control, and money. Why would an HOA 2 miles away care this much about a single off-grid house on remote mountain property? I pulled up Highland Meadows' website and started digging. Found their master plan documents, their development proposals, their long-term growth strategy. And that's when I found it. A reference to Phase 3 expansion, Ridge Properties development. I clicked through to a PDF buried deep in their planning documents. It was a proposal for future luxury home sites on the ridge west of Highland Meadows, exactly where my property was located. The proposal showed concept drawings of high-end mountain estates, exclusive ridgetop living with panoramic views, limited availability, 12 custom home sites, price range, $2, 5M minus, $4M. My property was marked on their map, not as an existing private parcel, as Lot 7, Premium Vista Site. They weren't trying to regulate my house, they were trying to take my land. I called an emergency meeting with Carlos the next day. We met at a coffee shop in Golden, away from prying eyes and HOA spies. "Pull up the GIS data for my property," I told him. "Not the current data, the historical data from 2019, when I bought it." He opened his laptop and accessed the county's geographic information system. What am I looking for? Compare the property boundaries from 2019 to now. Tell me if anything changed. He pulled up both maps side by side, studied them, zoomed in. His expression darkened. "Mirda," he muttered again. "What?" "Your western property line. It's different." "How different?" "About 80 feet. The current GIS data shows your boundary running almost 80 feet east of where it was in 2019. That puts a significant portion of your house, including the deck and part of the main structure, inside what they're now claiming is HOA territory." Who changed it? He clicked through the edit history. The modification was made in March 2024 by Highland Meadows Consulting Group, submitted as a technical boundary correction during the Fire Safety Overlay Review. A technical correction? They moved my property line 80 feet and called it technical correction? It's a gray area. If there's a legitimate survey discrepancy, corrections can be made administratively. But this, he shook his head, this doesn't look like a correction. This looks like theft. Can you get me the original survey data? The one that was filed when I bought the property? Yeah, give me a day. He called me back the next morning. Marcus, you need to see this. We met again. He showed me both surveys side by side, the original from 2019 and the corrected version from 2024. The original showed clear, straight property lines based on GPS coordinates and iron survey markers physically placed on the ground. The new version showed a curved line that conveniently placed my house partially inside Highland Meadows' claimed territory. This is fraud, I said. They altered public records to make it look like my property extends into their jurisdiction. Probably, but proving it's going to be hard. They filed it as an administrative correction with supporting documentation from their own surveyor. Unless you can prove their surveyor's work was fraudulent, it'll be your word against theirs. I have the original survey. I have the iron markers on the ground. Those don't move. That's good, but you're going to need a lawyer, a really good one. I already knew who to call. Patricia Reyes wasn't just any property attorney. She was a legend in Colorado legal circles, the lawyer who'd taken down 3 different HOAs for fraud, abuse of power, and illegal property seizures. Her office walls were covered with framed newspaper articles. Attorney wins $2. 3M settlement against HOA. Homeowners prevail in landmark property rights case. HOA dissolved after corruption scandal. We met at her office in Boulder on a failed Wednesday afternoon. I brought everything. The original deed and survey, all my building permits, the HOA's violation letters, the GIS data showing the boundary change, the Highland Meadows development proposal showing my property marked as Lot 7. Patricia reviewed it all methodically, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. She was in her 50s, gray hair cut short, wearing jeans and a blazer, with the kind of focused intensity that made you understand why HOAs feared her. After about 30 minutes, she looked up. "They're trying to force a hostile takeover of your property," she said flatly. "Everything they've done, the rezoning, the boundary manipulation, the manufactured violations, is designed to create legal confusion and financial pressure until you either sell or surrender control." Can they actually do this? Legally? No. But if they can tie you up in litigation long enough and drain your resources fighting multiple fronts, they're betting you'll fold before it gets in front of a judge who actually examines the evidence. I'm not folding. Good, because we're going to bury them. She pulled out a fresh legal pad and started making a list. First, we file a complaint with the Colorado Attorney General's Office for fraud and falsification of public records. Second, we demand a complete audit of all property record modifications made by Highland Meadows or their consultants. Third, we hire an independent surveyor to verify your original property boundaries and document the fraud. Fourth, we sue Highland Meadows HOA for illegal seizure, harassment, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. How long will this take? Months. Probably a year or more if they fight it. And it's going to be expensive, probably $50,000 to $75,000 in legal fees before we're done. I thought about the house. 5 years of work, every weekend, every vacation, every dollar of savings, the kids' faces when they saw their rooms finished for the first time, Elena's smile when we finally got the kitchen working. "Do it," I said. "Whatever it costs. They're not taking my home." Patricia smiled, not the fake corporate smile Amanda Crawford had used, but a genuine predator's grin. "They picked the wrong person to fuck with, Mr. Martinez." She started drafting complaints that afternoon. By Friday, we'd filed formal complaints with the Colorado Attorney General, the Jefferson County District Attorney, and the State Board of Professional Surveyors alleging fraud, forgery, and abuse of public office. We also hired Dr. James Morrison, an independent surveyor and forensic land analyst, to examine my property and verify the original boundaries. But while Patricia was building our legal case, I decided to do something Amanda Crawford probably didn't expect. I went public. I'd been documenting the construction from day one, not for legal purposes, just because I wanted to remember the process. Photos of every stage, video time lapses of the framing going up, Sophia's YouTube videos showing our weekends working on the house. I had hundreds of hours of material showing every stage of building that house with my own hands and my family's help. So I spent a week editing it all together into a 40-minute documentary-style video and posted it on YouTube with the title, How an HOA Tried to Steal My Home. The complete story. I included everything. The timeline showing 5 years of legal, permitted construction, the letters from Amanda Crawford with her threats and manufactured violations, the GIS maps showing the fraudulent boundary change, the Highland Meadows development proposal showing my property marked as their Lot 7, the forged survey documents. And I asked one simple question: how is this legal in America? I posted the video on a Sunday night. By Monday morning, it had 10,000 views. By Tuesday, 50,000. By Wednesday, it was trending on YouTube's homepage with over 200,000 views and climbing. Local news stations started calling. Colorado Public Radio did a segment. The Denver Post sent a reporter who drove up to the property and did a full feature story with photos of the house and interviews with me and Elena. The comments on the video were overwhelming. This is exactly what happened to us in Florida. HOAs are criminal organizations. I'm a real estate attorney, and this is textbook fraud. You need to sue them into the ground. This made me cry. The fact that you built this with your own hands and they're trying to steal it is enraging. Everyone needs to see this. HOAs are out of control. Suddenly, this wasn't just my fight. It was a story about property rights, about whether ordinary people could still own land in America without being subject to private governing bodies they never agreed to join. A GoFundMe appeared, started by Sophia, with my permission, to help with legal costs. It raised $35,000 in 2 weeks, strangers donating $20, $50, $100 because my story resonated with their own experiences or fears. The pressure started mounting on Jefferson County officials. Why had they approved Highland Meadows expansion without proper oversight? How had fraudulent boundary changes been filed without anyone noticing? Who was responsible for ensuring HOA expansions were legitimate? The county commissioners announced they were opening an inquiry. The planning commission chair gave a defensive interview claiming they'd followed proper procedure, and most importantly, Amanda Crawford went silent. No more letters, no more visits, no more threats. But I knew the silence wouldn't last, because we'd just filed the lawsuit and discovery was about to start, and discovery would reveal everything. Discovery in a civil lawsuit means both sides have to turn over documents, emails, internal records, anything relevant to the case. It's where the truth comes out, whether you want it to or not. Patricia requested everything from Highland Meadows, meeting minutes from the past 3 years, financial records, all communications related to the boundary expansion, internal memos discussing my property, contracts with surveyors and consultants, development proposals, literally everything. Highland Meadows tried to fight the discovery request, claiming much of it was privileged or irrelevant. But the judge, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah Blackwell who'd seen her share of HOA bullshit, ordered them to comply. What we got back was a treasure trove. The first smoking gun was an email thread from January 2024 between Amanda Crawford and a land development consultant named Brian Westwood. The subject line: Phase 3, Expansion, Ridge Properties Acquisition Strategy. Amanda's email laid it out explicitly. We need to move on the Ridge properties before word gets out about Phase 3. Target the owner-built structures first. They're more vulnerable to compliance, pressure, and less likely to have resources to fight back. Use the fire safety overlay to establish legal jurisdiction, then force compliance through violations. Goal is to acquire at least 5 properties over the next 18 months. Martinez property is prime target, good elevation, no legal protection. Owner appears isolated. Another email, this one from Brian Westwood. Recommended approach: use administrative boundary adjustment to bring target properties inside HOA jurisdiction. If we can shift the GIS boundaries before owners notice, we establish de facto control. By the time they realize what's happened, we'll have legal framework in place to force compliance or acquisition. Cost to implement, approximately $15K in surveyor fees and filing costs. Projected return, $2. $8M in land sales to Phase 3 developer. There was more. Financial projections showing Highland Meadows plan to acquire my property and 4 others, then sell them as a package to a luxury home developer for $3.2 million. My property alone was valued at $650,000 in their assessments, more than 7 times what I'd paid for raw land. They weren't trying to enforce HOA standards. They were trying to steal valuable land and flip it for massive profit. Patricia was practically glowing when she reviewed the discovery documents. This is fraud. This is conspiracy. This is every property rights attorney's dream case. They documented their own criminal conspiracy in writing. What do we do with it? We go nuclear. She filed an amended complaint adding fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, racketeering RICO violations usually reserved for organized crime, but applicable when multiple people conspire to commit fraud for profit, falsification of public records, and violations of Colorado's Organized Crime Control Act. She also sent copies of everything to the Colorado Attorney General's office, the FBI's White Collar Crime Division, the Jefferson County District Attorney, the State Real Estate Commission, every news outlet that had covered my story. The response was immediate and devastating for Highland Meadows. The Attorney General announced a formal criminal investigation into Highland Meadows HOA and its leadership. The FBI opened a preliminary inquiry into potential wire fraud and conspiracy. The State Real Estate Commission suspended the licenses of 2 of Highland Meadows' contracted consultants pending investigation, and the news coverage went from HOA dispute to alleged criminal conspiracy to steal property. Highland Meadows board started collapsing. 3 board members resigned within a week, issuing public statements claiming they'd been misled by Amanda and had no knowledge of the scheme. One of them, a retired engineer named George Chin, reached out to Patricia directly and offered to testify. Amanda ran that HOA like a dictatorship, he told us in a deposition. I tried to ask questions about the expansion project, tried to see the financials, and she threatened me with fines for interfering with official HOA business. After that, I just kept my head down. But I never knew about the fraud. If I'd known they were forging documents and stealing people's land, I would have gone to the police immediately. Brian Westwood, the consultant who'd helped orchestrate the whole scheme, lawyered up and stopped responding to any inquiries. And Amanda Crawford? She doubled down. 2 weeks after the amended complaint was filed, Amanda called an emergency Highland Meadows community meeting. The notice went out to all 200-plus HOA members with the subject line, "Defending our community against false allegations, mandatory attendance." I wasn't invited, I wasn't technically an HOA member despite their claims. But a local news station sent a camera crew, and one sympathetic Highland Meadows resident live-streamed the entire meeting on Facebook. Amanda stood at the front of the clubhouse conference room in full corporate battle armor, navy blue blazer, cream-colored blouse, pearl necklace, hair pulled back in that severe bun. She looked tired but defiant, like a general preparing for a last stand. There have been serious, slanderous allegations made against this HOA and against me personally, she began, her voice steady and controlled. Allegations of fraud, conspiracy, criminal conduct. I want to address these claims directly and set the record straight for everyone here. She pulled up a PowerPoint presentation on the screen behind her. The first slide showed my house with the caption, "Unauthorized structure, fire safety risk, non-compliant construction." This property, Amanda continued, pointing at the photo with a laser pointer, was built without proper oversight in a high-risk wildfire zone. The owner refused to comply with basic safety standards and architectural guidelines designed to protect our entire community. When we attempted to address the situation through proper legal channels, he launched a malicious media campaign to avoid accountability and portray himself as a victim. Several people in the audience nodded. Amanda had clearly cultivated supporters who believed her narrative. The so-called evidence of wrongdoing consists of internal planning documents taken completely out of context, she continued, Yes, we explored expanding our community that's not illegal. Yes, we worked with county officials to address legitimate fire safety concerns in the area that's responsible governance. And yes, we attempted to bring non-compliant properties into compliance. With safety standards, that's literally our job as an HOA board. She clicked to another slide showing emails from residents complaining about eyesore properties and fire risks on the ridge. Whether those emails were real or cherry-picked or outright fabricated, I had no way of knowing. This HOA has been vilified in the media for trying to protect property values and community safety, Amanda said, her voice rising slightly with practiced indignation. We have been accused of crimes we did not commit. We are being sued for doing our jobs, and we will not be intimidated by lawsuits, media attacks, or political pressure. We will continue to defend our community and our mission. The reporter from Channel 7 raised his hand. Miss Crawford, how do you respond to specific allegations that you and your consultants fraudulently altered GIS property boundaries to falsely claim jurisdiction over properties that were never part of Highland Meadows? Amanda's expression didn't waver. Those allegations are categorically false and defamatory. We worked with licensed professional surveyors and followed all proper county procedures. Any boundary adjustments were made based on legitimate technical corrections, not fraud. What about the emails discussing acquisition through compliance pressure and projected profits from selling acquired properties? Those internal communications have been grossly misrepresented. We discussed strategies to encourage voluntary compliance with safety standards, not theft or extortion. Are you aware that the Colorado Attorney General's office and the FBI are now investigating Highland Meadows for fraud and racketeering? Amanda's smile finally cracked slightly. This meeting is for Highland Meadows community members only. Press should direct questions through our legal counsel. The camera operator tried to ask another question, but was escorted out by HOA security. The live stream continued for another 20 minutes. Several residents asked pointed questions. One woman demanded to see the financial records related to the expansion project. Another asked why the board hadn't been informed about the potential Phase 3 development and profit projections. Amanda deflected, obfuscated, and finally ended the meeting early, claiming, "Legal advice from our attorneys prevents me from discussing certain topics while litigation is pending." The live stream ended, but the damage to Amanda's credibility was done. Social media exploded with commentary. Legal analysts called her explanations transparently false. A former federal prosecutor tweeted, "This is what desperation looks like when you've been caught committing fraud and think you can talk your way out." Within 3 days, 5 more Highland Meadows board members resigned. The HOA's insurance company sent a letter disclaiming coverage for any criminal acts. And the remaining board members voted to remove Amanda as president and suspend her pending the outcome of the investigations. But she wasn't done fighting. The Colorado Attorney General filed criminal charges in September 2025, 5 felony counts including fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, forgery of public documents, and abuse of public office. Brian Westwood, facing his own charges, cut a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for a reduced sentence and cooperation, he testified that Amanda had hired him specifically to create a legal framework for acquiring ridge properties through manufactured compliance violations and fraudulent boundary manipulations. He admitted he'd paid a surveyor $8,000 to create false boundary corrections that would bring target properties inside Highland Meadows' claimed jurisdiction. The surveyor, a man named Dennis Kowalski, who'd lost his license in Nevada for similar fraud, was arrested separately. A forensic document examiner confirmed that several records filed with Jefferson County contained forged signatures and falsified survey data. The expert testified that the alterations were deliberate and systematic, not administrative errors. The county assessor's office, under intense pressure and scrutiny, conducted a full audit of all property record changes from 2023 to 2024. They found 12 properties that had been subject to suspicious boundary modifications, all connected to Highland Meadows expansion efforts. My case wasn't unique. I was just the first to fight back publicly. The county issued formal corrections, restoring original boundaries for all affected properties. They also refunded excess property taxes that had been assessed based on the fraudulent records. I got a check for $3,200. Not huge money, but a small victory. The trial for the criminal charges was set for December, but 2 weeks before the trial date, Amanda's attorney approached the prosecutor with a plea offer. Amanda pled guilty to 3 felony counts: fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and falsification of public records. In exchange for her plea and cooperation in ongoing investigations, prosecutors dropped the RICO and organized crime charges. Sentencing came in January 2026. The judge, the same Judge Blackwell who'd overseen the civil case, gave Amanda 3 years in federal prison, 5 years probation after release, and ordered her to pay $147,000 in restitution to me and the other affected property owners. "You abused a position of trust and authority," Judge Blackwell said from the bench. "You manipulated legal systems designed to protect property owners and instead used them as weapons to steal people's homes for personal profit. You showed no remorse throughout this process, only defiance and denial. This court will not tolerate such brazen criminal conduct." Amanda didn't react visibly, just sat there in her navy blazer at the defense table, staring straight ahead, as the bailiffs led her away to begin her sentence. I felt not triumphant, just tired and relieved. The nightmare was finally over. It's June 2026 now. Almost exactly 2 years since Amanda first showed up at my property with her clipboard and threats. The house is finished. Completely, beautifully finished. We moved in permanently last fall, sold the Denver house, enrolled Sophia and Diego in the Mountain School District, started the life we'd been building toward for 7 years. The kids love it. Diego built his treehouse last summer with my help. Sophia graduated from her YouTube channel to become a teenage advocate for property rights and HOA reform. She's been interviewed on podcasts and even testified before the Colorado legislature. Elena calls our home the fortress. Sophia calls it the house that spite built. Diego just calls it home. I added one final detail before we officially moved in: a hand-carved wooden sign at the entrance to our property. Made from beetle kill pine, letters burned in with a wood-burning tool, private property, built by hand, owned by right. No AOA, no surrender, no exceptions. It's become something of a local landmark. People drive up the fire trail on weekends just to take photos of it. Several have told me it gives them courage to fight their own battles. But I didn't build this place for symbolism or to make a statement. I built it because I wanted my kids to know that ordinary people can still create extraordinary things through hard work, determination, and refusal to give up. That you don't need permission from gatekeepers and bureaucrats and HOA tyrants to live your life on your own terms. That freedom still exists if you're willing to fight for it. The Colorado legislature passed new laws this year, the Property Rights Protection Act, making it illegal for HOAs to expand their boundaries without explicit written consent from affected property owners. The law also requires public hearings, individual notification, and strict oversight of any boundary changes. They call it the Martinez Act informally. I testified in favor of it before the legislature, told my story to a room full of lawmakers. Some of them actually listened. I've been contacted by dozens of people fighting similar battles across the country, HOAs trying to expand territory, manufacture violations, force compliance through intimidation. I help when I can. Connect them with Patricia and other property rights attorneys. Share strategies that worked for me. Offer encouragement when they want to give up. Because Amanda Crawford wasn't unique. She was just one visible example of a system that lets private organizations wield government-like power without government accountability or oversight. Highland Meadows HOA was dissolved and reformed under new leadership with strict oversight and transparency requirements. The new board issued a formal public apology to me and the other affected property owners. Several residents who'd supported Amanda quietly moved away. Last week, I was sitting on the deck at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching fog roll through the valley below and obscure the trees halfway down the slope. Sophia came out and sat next to me, still in her pajamas. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. All the fighting and stress and money and everything. I looked at the house, every beam and board built by our hands, every nail driven with purpose, every detail chosen with intention. Looked at the mountains stretching out forever, untouched and free. Thought about what this place meant, not just as a house, but as proof that you can still win against power and corruption if you refuse to surrender. Every single second, I said, because this isn't just a house. It's proof that ordinary people can still build extraordinary things. That power doesn't always triumph. That sometimes, if you document everything, refuse to be intimidated, and fight back with truth and determination, you get to keep what's yours. And nobody, not Amanda Crawford, not any HOA, not any bureaucrat with a clipboard and a fake smile can ever take that away. This is our home. We built it. We own it. We defended it. And it's ours forever. The end.